Scapeshift mirrors, a lot of times the interactive cards you have in the deck are at their worst. For these players, we see cards like both players have registered Prison Realm, but not too much more. Edgar is on slightly more ramp than Sky, adding cards that grow from the ashes to his list.
And a lot of times with ramp decks, you're just going to basically see whoever is on the play and gets to cast more ramp spells early is going to just be so far ahead because all that matters is racing each other.
The deck, its win conditions, mentioned the card Scapeshift, that's a 4 of. 4 Hydroid Krasis. And of the ramp spells it plays, it's looking not for creature-based ramp. Like a Scapeshift deck, it's all ramp that puts lands onto the battlefield. So we have Arboreal Grazer, Elvish Rejuvenator, and then Growth Spiral that we see from Sky Mason.
Right. Having things that actually just put lands onto the battlefield is something that players are going to be willing to pay a premium for in this matchup.
Rejuvenator, the 1/1 from M19, you get the top 5 cards. Ooh. If you see a land, you may put it onto the battlefield attached, but Edgar misses.
If it's good.
And at 28 lands in Edgar's deck, that is a rare miss on a Elvish Rejuvenator.
Right, that is something that Magalhaes is got to be feeling awful about in this situation.
Especially in this matchup where it's all about how fast you can go.
Right, just look at how many lands that Mason has on the battlefield at this point.
Scapeshift in those top cards. Mason does not yet have a shift, but Rejuvenator will ramp him. Looks like Temple of Mystery, so we'll get to Scry here. Even if he doesn't find Scapeshift, Sky Mason does, well, first of all, has Hydroid Krasis in hand, and second of all, it looks like 6 lands with different names, which means, and one of them is Field of the Dead. So 7th land next turn, just by making his land drop, he'll start the zombies.
Exactly, and this is a spot where, without that Scapeshift, especially seeing Magalhaes miss that land drop a moment ago, then you're going to end up in these positions where if the other player just misses on land drops, the fair zombies plan is good enough.
Well, second Rejuvenator for Edgar hits. Finds Blossoming Sands, but he's still multiple turns behind as he makes a forest here. Arboreal Grazer of his own, that could catch him up, and it does, so 6 lands of Edgar's. If you think here, if Sky starts value-making zombies, cards like this Circuitous Route, but doesn't actually have the card Scapeshift, and Edgar has Scapeshift, do you think Edgar ends up ahead?
Oh, absolutely. So you'll be able to block some of the zombies on Mason's side of the battlefield, but you can't block all of them. And that's the issue, is eventually you'll end up behind in the zombie race, and the players just make so many zombies with a card like Scapeshift that being able to block 1 or 2 of them is not enough if one player has a Scapeshift and the other doesn't.
Circuitous Route finds 2 gates, both onto the battlefield. So 8 different lands for Sky. He gets a pair of zombies. The Hydroid Krasis would, in many matchups, be good here, but it is pretty fair for a Scapeshift mirror.
Well, you know what it does, most importantly, is it digs you half of XX cards, where X is going to put you closer to Scapeshift.
Right.
Arboreal Grazer also having reach.
Yeah, it's a 0/3. It has reach. It blocks a zombie.
Very slowly, you see. Sloths are not quick creatures.
They have the long arms, though. They just go and...
Oh, they reach very
They can
literally.
reach up and grab the jellyfish, as they're known to do.
This just sounds like some sort of wild fever dream all of a sudden.
Prison Realm takes care of a token. Prison Realm not at its best in this matchup, but it does scry 1. And 7th land from Edgar is his own Field of the Dead. So now he starts making zombies.
And Edgar leaving a card on top with that scry, we may have a Scapeshift on the way here.
Do you think there's any cards other than Scapeshift he'd be willing to leave on top?
Maybe a Hydroid Krasis, because if you bottom the card with the scry, you have to think, do I think that 1 card is better than taking a turn off to draw 3 cards deep instead?
Hydroid Krasis for 8. You see on Sky's side, rather than playing his land first, he wants to see if he draws a Field of the Dead here. He does not. Gets another zombie, but he did draw Scapeshift. In the untap, he will have an army. And it's Grow from the Ashes for Edgar. This card is unique to his deck. With 5 mana, he can search his library for 2 basic lands, put them into play untapped.
So at this point, we're just seeing him kind of say, all right, let's go in on this fair plan a little bit.
Right, each land comes with a zombie.
Correct.
But things are about to get pretty unfair on Sky's side.
Whoop.
Oh, now it's unfair. Edgar's other card is Scapeshift. That was the final card in his hand. And we're going to see dueling Scapeshifts here. And that's going to mean a lot of zombies.
Well, it depends on whether or not Reilly actually, or excuse me, Mason even has the card Scapeshift yet.
There are, I was counting, 19 different lands that this deck plays. So Edgar's, this is interesting. He has 9 lands in play. He needs to have 7 lands with different names. So 3 Field of the Dead and 6 other lands would be the most zombies he could get.
Right, so this is a spot where it's unlikely we want to see him sacrifice that copy of Field of the Dead that's on the battlefield because he does want to draw more of them later in the game.
I think Edgar knows the only way he doesn't win here is if Sky has Scapeshift. So Edgar actually going to sacrifice all 9 lands. So I believe we're seeing the remaining 3 fields and 6 lands with different names.
Okay, so that means the thought here is drawing a Field of the Dead is just not going to be good enough against a Scapeshift.
Right, see 6 different lands, puts them at the top, and 7 different lands. Yeah, he's going to put 1 back once Tranquil Cove. And yeah, 3 Field of the Dead. So 9 lands enter the battlefield, and each land makes 3 zombies. So we should be getting 27 zombies here.
That's just good math.
Bring him up to 30, but will 30 zombies be enough?
I'm going to riot if we just don't have 30 Justin Parnells in the token box. I'm getting word that we don't.
I hope we have enough dice.
What kind of show are we running here?
I have to go print out some more. I wanted to see a just army of them on the battlefield.
Get Justin Parnell on a plane right now.
There we go. Covered in dice. 30 zombies. But the best part is we're not even sure it's a winning line.
What a world. I know yesterday I was talking to a red deck player who got to cast 2 Goblin Chain Whirlers the turn after this many zombies came into play. And all of a sudden there weren't zombies on the battlefield anymore.
And that's awesome. I don't think either player has a way to answer zombies. Their only sweeper is the blast zone, but that can't hit zombie tokens.
Well, having more zombies is basically a sweeper.
Growth Spiral from Sky. He wants to get even more lands. Gets a zombie, puts Glacial Fortress into play. So, can Sky go 1 bigger? He has... going to cast Teferi.
Ooh, he can roll up Teferi and then...
Instant speed the Scapeshift?
Right.
Krasis swings in. 10 lands from Sky. That means he can keep his 4th Field of the Dead as opposed to sacrificing it.
Ooh, that is going to be worth so many extra zombies.
Yeah, I think that'll means he's just going to go, his zombie army will be bigger. Teferi from Edgar. Sky's going to respond. Here's Scapeshift. So for him, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 lands total. But it looks like he wants to keep the field. With 10 lands, he can have 4 fields and 6 different lands.
Just good numbers.
So 4 fields, if he Scapeshifts sacrificing 9, he'll have 36 zombies. If he Scapeshifts sacrificing this field, then he'd have 30 zombies. So I think there's the maximum is to leave the field in play. And that is right. Now does he have... So, sacrificing 9.
Things would have to break pretty poorly for him to not have enough lands in his, 28 land deck here. 29 land
Yeah, he's
deck,
on 29. Yeah, I think he'll be fine. He has 20 different unique lands.
Right.
With a deck like Valakut, you have to do things like count mountains in your deck in Modern. Because of how many different lands this deck plays, it doesn't feel like that is a major concern with Scape Shift. It's something you need to be aware of, but most likely won't come into play. So, all 4 fields of the dead, 6 lands with different names. And now that Edgar's behind on the zombie count, he's going to be behind 30 to 39. How does he win?
Drawing another Scape Shift, drawing more lands.
Okay, another Scape Shift. Does he have enough lands left? I suppose.
Probably. Probably has 10-ish left.
So 9 enter the battlefield. 4 each. 36. 39, because he already had 3 zombies. We've run out of white dice, so we're switching over to the black ones.
What if we get out the Tarmo die and just add the 2 numbers together?
I like that. I think the Tarmo die...
Or you can just put it on 6-7
it goes up to 6-7
and imply that they have 67 zombies.
I think that's the clearest way to do it.
Ooh, oh, 2, 3.
Well, you put the 3-4 Tarmo die on it, and then you put a 5 next to it.
Yeah, no, that's good. That checks out. I don't have enough fingers for that, but you're the math guy. I'll trust you.
Well, the 3-4 means 34 zombies, and then just 5.
Of course, of course.
What a mess.
We're basically watching the acoustic version of the War of the Spark trailer.
Look, the diehards, this is their favorite one. Fairy bounces Prison Realm.
Mom, can I have a War of the Spark trailer? Honey, we have War of the Spark trailer at home. This is War of the Spark trailer at home.
Prison Realm recast. That one takes care of the Hydroid Crisis. Scry. So what do you scry to the... How do you decide scries at this point?
Is it a Field of the Dead?
No, not,
right.
It can't be for anyone.
Is it... Oh, that's true, actually, because you're in to sacrifice a copy.
Right, so he's at a real disadvantage. His lands make 3 zombies instead of 4.
Right. So I believe you have a pretty clear decision tree here. 1, is it Escape Shift? If so, you leave it. If it is not Escape Shift, I do not recommend leaving it.
Hydroid Crisis? I think I leave Hydroid Crisis.
Hydroid Crisis is probably close enough.
Don't know if I want anything else. Growth Spiral from Edgar. So we look at some math here. See, Edgar's going to attack with 30 zombies. This is going to be easier. And it looks like Sky just going to trade 30 zombies each. He's left over with 9. Happy to trade down the board. Should be a 2-turn clock from Sky. Over on the other table, Sky's teammates helping him out. Both Kenton and Benjamin are winners in game 1, though Dilks evens things up in the Modern Sea. Prison Realm's going to take care of that, and Sky Mason takes the first game here in Standard.
And that's kind of what we expected to happen. We saw Mason get out ahead on the battlefield a little bit earlier, and Edgar missing on that Elvish Rejuvenator literally changed the entire game. If Edgar had one more land, he would not have had to have sacrificed that last field or that first Field of the Dead, and would have just actually had more zombies over the course of the game, and likely been able to cast Escape Shift sooner. It would have been an entirely different game.
So identical sideboard, well, not identical sideboards, so correction. But if we thought that was crazy, it's going to get crazier after sideboard. So both players have 2 copies of Deputy of Detention.
Because of course. So now you get to choose one of 2 paths. 1, do I want to not make so many zombies? Do I want to make just enough zombies to win in order to dodge getting got by Deputy of Detention? But if I don't make enough zombies and then my opponent scape shifts, then all of a sudden I'm behind in the zombie war.
Now, Deputy also removes your own zombies when you cast it. No, it doesn't. It's not a right straight detention, so it's just one-sided.
Correct.
Okay.
They wanted to avoid the nightmare scenarios where there were 2 or 3 deputy detentions into play that ended up just going in a circle with each other.
I've certainly never tried to break Magic Online doing such things.
Wow, you're so wholesome. I've done that a lot of times.
Maybe I've done that a couple times.
Oh, I've set up entire streams where the whole point of it was to try and crash Magic Online. Anointed Procession was very good at it.
One time we had an issue where we did that during Pro Tour testing, and then every time we kept logging on to try to test later, the looped match was still going. It became a thing. We had to just get up and make new accounts.
Is the loop ready?
So identical sideboards here, except for the fact that Sky has a Johnny's Welcome and Edgar has Ripjaw Raptor. Now Ripjaw Raptor, it's 4/5 for 4. Does it have any place here?
Ripjaw Raptor is something that you probably don't care very much about. It. You mostly want it for your red deck matchups because it's an effective blocker that draws you towards your other combo pieces.
Similar to the Welcome in Sky's deck, it's for the red matchups.
More than likely, that's correct. The nice thing about a Johnny's Welcome against the red decks is it just keeps you out of burn range and puts you in a spot where, say you resolve a scape shift, your opponent can't then just burn you out while you're waiting on your zombies to be able to attack.
So both players, we see Deputy of Detention then, so that answers zombies. Dovin's Veto is a pretty powerful card here. It answers most of the deck, especially Scape Shift.
Yep.
I don't see anything else I expect the players to reach for.
No, Deputy of Detention, great. Dovin's Veto, great. There's a not 0 chance you see something like Ixalan's binding on Teferi, but that's fairly unlikely.
Veil of Summer answers a Deputy of Detention. That's a very narrow application. I don't think it's worth it, but...
Yeah, I'd be surprised. The nice thing it also is the way to counter the uncounterable Dovin's Veto. So it does have that going for it. The big issue... So there are 2 things. One, it's not very good against Teferi, but the nice thing against Teferi specifically is you can preempt the Scape Shift.
Right.
You can lead with the Veil, and then after that, cast your Scape Shift. So it's something that it wouldn't surprise me if it came in, just because a lot of times Velocity is the name of the game where you just need to find your copies of Scape Shift, and things that are purely defensive, your Prison Realms, for example, are going to be a bit weaker here.
All right. Well, if you want to give the Scape Shift deck a new try, no place to do it like at a Star City Games game night. These are tournaments held at local stores where you can win exclusive tokens and sleeves just for playing. StarCityGames.com game night, we are giving away the Down Undead tokens and sleeves from our creature collection for the month of July.
Down Undead's so flavorful for the zombie land combo deck.
Yeah. See, they're being chased by the zombie. They're running away from the field of the dead.
They are really in a land down undead.
Oof.
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 Oh,
Oof.
that no. I'm giving myself that one. That was normally I'm like, all right, yeah, that was cheesy. It was bad. That was so cheesy. It circled back around to being comedic gold.
So for game 2, Edgar has a Dovin's Veto in the opener. If it's like a Scape Shift matchup, the ramp cards are likely the most important. That certainly is true in Modern.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, you really need to have cardboard on the battlefield because the lands are the things that matter.
Land drops trade-off for the players. A pass for Edgar. There is a Growth Spiral in Sky's hand. We see Spiral from Edgar. This is an opportunity for Sky to resolve a Spiral if he wants. He's going to let it happen. And is he going to let Edgar untap? Is the question. And he will. So Edgar has a chance to Dovin's Veto the Growth Spiral if he wants.
Most of the time, if your opponent wants to use a Dovin's Veto on something like a ramp spell, you want to give them that opportunity. And there's also the side where Mason wants to be able to bluff his own copies of Dovin's Veto.
Well, Edgar not respecting the bluff at all. Here's Circuitous Route, getting 2 gates. That's going to resolve, and Sky is definitely behind in the ramp race now.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Just Magalhaes was on the play, had a ramp spell on 2, and then a ramp spell on 3.
And I actually think at this point, Edgar, if he has Scape Shift, will just go for it and not respect Dovin's Veto.
Oh, not at all.
Because the Circuitous Route resolved.
Absolutely.
Identical hands for the players, but Edgar got to go first, and that matters.
Wow, I cannot believe being on the play favors the person
mirror?
who got to play lands first.
It's a pretty big deal in a ramp mirror to go first. It forces the other player to have interaction, because if no one interacts, the player who goes first is at the advantage.
Yes.
Rejuvenator from Edgar. Top 5. This one's not going to miss. Finds Temple of Mystery. Gets Temple of Mystery and Blast Zone. Land for the turn for Edgar. Rejuvenators on Sky side so far still doing an exact impression of Edgar's draw.
The nice thing is I believe we see another Rejuvenator hiding out in Mason's hand, so this is a way for him to kind of break serve.
And for Sky, also, he has a Field of the Dead, so he's going to start making zombies first off the Rejuvenator.
This is a way to pull out ahead.
Certainly, it plays around the Dovin's Veto in Edgar's hand as well. We see another Rejuvenator. He'd love a second Field of the Dead, and that's going to be what he hits, so that's 2 zombies. At a certain point, you just don't need to scape shift anymore. Land, Plaza of Harmony, 2 more zombies.
Zombie, 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 plaza, plaza.
He certainly gains 3, he has 2 more gates. And now it's on Edgar to find something.
All right, Edgar, it's time.
He's got that scape shift, it's time to jam it. Land here. And this kind of reminds me of Valakut draws, where you have all this ramp, but you don't have a Primeval Titan, you don't have a scape shift, and your lands weren't Valakut, so at some point you're just ramping into nothing.
Right.
That's what Edgar's draw feels like right now.
Yeah, and it's such an awkward spot where these ramp decks can kind of just rely on the top of their library to work out, because you don't throw back a hand that has Growth Spiral, Circuitous Root, Elvish Rejuvenator, and lands, right?
Yeah, I mean, similar to the Valakut analogy, right? If your first land's Valakut, then ramping up to 10 lands is great. You're bolting someone every turn. If your first land's Field of the Dead and you ramp up, great. You get an army of zombies as you ramp. But if you just don't have any of it, it doesn't do anything.
Correct.
And here's an attack for 12. This guy's going to end the game quickly if Edgar doesn't have anything to say about it. See, Edgar's staring at Dovin's Veto in hand. A good card in the matchup, but not relevant here.
And there's even a spot where we see a copy of Teferi in Sky's hand. So it's very, very probable that the Veto just counters a Teferi, which isn't honestly that relevant a card in the mirror.
Swing in. Edgar blocks. 2 more zombies from Hinterland Harbor. And it looks like a big Hydroid Krasis on the way for Sky. Yeah, it looks at it. That's X equals 8. Gains 4, draws 4.
Splash.
And actually, Sky's team, 11-1. And we pointed that out. They're in first place in the tournament already. If they get a win here, that certainly locks them for top 8.
Oh, absolutely.
And
it just really puts a marked difference between them and the rest of the field.
yeah, probably locks them for the number 1 seed, to be totally honest.
And we see Edgar pick up the cards.
And that's going to be it. After the Krasis, there's no way to come back here. So, Sky Mason, a 2-0 winner, Bant Scape Shift. Both sides of our top teams here showing its strength.
Right, and Edgar's deck looked a little unimpressive because of Mason going over the top of it, but game 1, he put 60 power into play.
Right, and then they had to trade it away.
Yeah, exactly. That was not an example of Edgar's deck failing. It was just the mirror with literally 1 more land, and it made the difference.
We are going to go over to the Legacy table, where Daryl Ayers looks to have control of a second game, but he is down to Kenton Najdzien. Karn the Great Creator from Kenton's deck. Bomberman is the Auriok Salvager's Lion's Eye Diamond combo. A -2 from Karn. It's going to reach over toward Kenton's Wish board. Finds Lion's Eye Diamond. And goes ahead and casts that. He's at 7, but Darrow only has 6 damage on the board. 2 Plague Engineers, Baleful Strix, and Renin 6.
And Darrow's also down to 2 cards, so there's a chance that this is a window for Kenton to just close it.
Snapcaster Mage from Darrow. Looks like there is a burn spell in the graveyard, so they are going to 3. Things evened up, but Sky needs a win from one of his 2 teammates in these game 3s. We see Dilks versus Benjamin Reilly. We're going to go check in on them for game number 3. It's a tough matchup because Tron is a Chalice of the Void deck.
Oh yeah, who's ready for the Chalice of the on 0 matchup? And finding your one-off hate cards that can just hose an entire strategy is so much easier under the London Mulligan. This is almost Benjamin having to take some of his own medicine.
Yeah, London Mulligan helps out his deck and hurts it in matchups like this.
Exactly. A lot of the discussion about this sort of thing has been centered around cards like Leyline of the Void, but as powerful as Chalice is against the 0-mana equipment deck, it does a pretty good impression.
And we look at their sideboards here as well. For Ben Reilly, there's 2 Echoing Truth, and that's it for ways to answer a on-board Chalice of the Void.
Oof. That is not
I guess
a long list.
he can repeal.
That's true.
Okay, and repeal can be... Repeal is actually an interesting
mana.
one. Yeah, it's exact. Yeah, converted mana cost X, so it does cost 1.
There are so few 1-drops in the deck that it's hard to imagine that Dilks puts a Chalice on 1 before 0.
And you see, out of respect here,
Oh.
Ben Reilly on the play. Land Mox Opal, 2 Paradise Mantles, turn 1 Pure Steel Paladin.
I love this line. This is great. This is so good. Riley's going to have 4 mana on turn 2.
Right, and even if Chalice of the Void is in play, you might be concerned because there's all this possibility here. I was going to say, well, hold on. Dismember shoots down the Pure Steel. I was going to say there is a Gear per Aether Grid in Ben's hand, but he needs another land to cast it, and that will deliver. Here is Aether Grid. He can start shooting away at Dilks. The Aether Grid allows him to tap 2 artifacts to deal 1 damage.
Plunk.
Yeah, Dilks not going to be able to remove that, but he might be able to overpower it because Ben Reilly can't put any more artifacts onto the battlefield.
Plunk.
I guess, what is it? Of his 0-mana artifacts, Sigil of Distinction can still be cast through a Chalice of the Void.
That one's not bad.
Shot there from Paradise Mantles. SRAM. And Retract. Now, interestingly, so SRAM works on cast, not enter the battlefield. So Pure Steel Paladin is enter the battlefield. So he can cast these 0-mana cards into the Chalice of the Void and then draw, which is what he will do.
Drawing towards that Echoing Truth to try and find an answer to this Chalice. Maybe a repeal.
Looks like Echoing Truth is in his hand.
That's going to give him a window.
Yeah, question is, can Matt Dilks show up with a Thought Knot Seer? Another way to answer this, perhaps.
Right, there are a lot of ways here where if Dilks were to crack that Expedition map and get the 3rd piece of Tron this turn, he would still have the mana left over to cast a Thought Knot Seer.
And the question, if Ben does bounce the Chalice, does he have enough equipment left to combo?
Well, he didn't cast any more last turn.
That's a good sign to start. Eldrazi Temple from Dilks. 2 mana is going to be Matter Reshaper, not the Eldrazi he wanted. Back to Ben we go.
And as it stands, Mox Opal is not going to be doing very much because there aren't that many artifacts on the battlefield.
Right.
Well, on Riley's side of the battlefield.
Yeah, it really feels like he wants to set up for an end-step Echoing Truth. We see Serum Visions here for Ben. Temple Garden, the other land in play for Ben, so he needs blue mana. Does not find it, so no end-step Echoing Truth just yet.
All right, that's got to be a huge relief for Dilks here, knowing that he's just going to get another turn.
Blast Zone from Dilks. One counter now can get it up to 2 in a turn. Gives him an answer to SRAM.
This is tough because every card like that Dilks puts on the battlefield is another hurdle that Reilly has to jump in order to get to combo. And this is the way that you'll see these fair decks attack combo decks that are much faster as they go, okay, I can't stop you forever, but here's a hurdle and I'm going to apply pressure. Here's a hoop to jump through, I'm going to apply pressure. And the thought being, eventually, Reilly won't be able to jump over all those hoops before he's dead.
Crack Mind Stone. Dilks is planning to set that Blast Zone to 2. No sense in keeping Mind Stone around. Has to pass the turn.
Hoping to find maybe a Tron piece, something to that effect there. Anything that he could do to check the SRAM.
Paradise Mantle the pickup for Ben. He actually has another SRAM in hand. I'll go ahead and attack here. And just says go. This kind of cat and mouse with the Blast Zone is going to be interesting.
Ooh.
Both players at 12. So Matter Shaper puts Dilks ahead on the race.
There is certainly a point where if Dilks can just put this Blast Zone to 2, he doesn't actually need to ever crack it.
Right.
He can just attack with his Matter Shaper every turn and stare and go, all right, do something. You're behind on the battlefield. Like right now, the onus of action is on Reilly.
All right, Reilly will need to find 2 ways to bounce Chalice of the Void. Enough that he can reload and go for it again. Matter Shaper swings in, Reilly down to 9. And here's Echoing Truth on Chalice of the Void. So an interesting line, I think, if Dilks had some more, knowledge of Pure Steel Paladin. Pure Steel Paladin does not play a basic island, and Dilks did draw a Ghost Quarter.
Oh, interesting.
Right, they're only basic planes in the deck.
Sure. All your lands have to tap for white when you're leaning so hard on turn 2ing a Pure Steel Paladin.
So if he wanted to stop things like Echoing Truth, Dilks actually had an option to Ghost Quarter that Hallowed Fountain away. Again, not a matchup you play particularly often. And,
sure.
You might even run into a Paladin player who has a basic island. So end-step Chalice getting bounced.
Kind of weighing whether or not this is the window to just destroy SRAM.
Right. I mean, I think the question is, would you do it now, or do you wait until Ben casts the first equipment?
I believe it's going to be better a lot of the time to go ahead and just do it now.
If you're going to have to do it.
Right.
Yeah.
You don't want to give Reilly that extra equipment anyway.
Actually, it's going to be Spatial Contortion on the SRAM. Leaves up Blast Zone. Well, you can check it here. Blast Zone actually can't be activated here. Not enough mana. So SRAM from hand for Reilly. Here's Paradise Mantle. Can he put the combo together while the shields are down? Chalice is coming back in just a turn.
Hopefully he can get the quarter shields up.
Then he can start blocking.
Oh, I don't know. You said shields are down. I'm making a pun. I'm doing my best
It
out
would work if
here.
you'll be able to block. If he gets a 2-5.
I mean, that blocks the heck out of a Matter Shaper.
Force Dilks to find a different Eldrazi. Can Ben continue? Here's Seacrum Coast. Mox Opal. He can deal 1 damage with the Aether Grid to the Matter Shaper. Don't really know where the other damage is coming from.
It looks like there are 2 Mox Opals in his hand, and he realized that there wasn't a way to tap both
Yeah,
of them.
you can't actually do it. Okay, so 1 damage might have been misplaced there.
I see where he was going.
Yeah, I like it. Now they're gone. Here's Chalice of the Void again. And Ugin the Ineffable is the finisher here for Dilks. Planeswalker going to take care of SRAM. Matter Shaper hits in, bend down to 6. And that might do it. The second window.
Yeah, this is...
Yeah, Pure
This
Steel
is
usually
tough.
gets about 1 reload to try the combo.
And
And that's not going to do it. So Matthew Dilks is your winner, which means it's going to come down to Legacy to decide the round.
all right, Bomberman, great deck on the weekend. Daryl Ayers, Legacy Master on also a great choice for this tournament in his 4-color control deck featuring Snow in Arkham's Astrolabe. It's really tough to see exactly what this is going to go. It's going to come down to what Ayers has brought to the table, how fast a start Kenton can have.
Yeah, Daryl's deck's set up to really win against other fair decks. He's going to be a bit slower against Bomberman than something like a Delver deck would be, but it might still play here.
Right, having access to cards like Thoughtseize, Force of Will, they're just really good checks on the combo decks.
Looks like Kenton on a mulligan to 6. He's going to get Thoughtseized as well. We see Mishra's Bauble, Monastery Mentor, Auriok Salvagers, and a pair of lands. Daryl sizing up which one he wants to take here. Looks like it's going to be the Monastery Mentor. So leaves Kenton with lands and salvagers. It's going to be Mishra's Bauble and a pass for Kenton. Daryl has at least 1 copy of Force of Will in his hand. If there's a key card like Auriok Salvagers, that'll play here. Salvagers, a 2/4 for 4. For 2 mana, you bring back a artifact card with converted mana cost 1 or less from your graveyard to hand.
And so the combo here is Lion's Eye Diamond, Auriok Salvagers, you make infinite mana, and then you use something like Mishra's Bauble or Pyrite Spellbomb to try and eventually just draw a ton of cards. Or if you have a Monastery Mentor, you just get infinite creatures because you cast a bunch of non-creature spells.
Cavern of Souls set to human is going to mean that Force of Will, no good. Here's Auriok Salvagers from Kenton. Passes to Daryl, no removal spell. Salvagers are here.
Because of this Wasteland, he just had to go for it there because of Cavern.
And Daryl missing his land drop.
Oh. Beatdowns!
This is not exactly how we drew it up, but Salvagers swings in.
Salvaging a game plan.
Love it. They're going to bring back the Bauble, or at least attempt to. Salvagers brings it to your hand. So now cast the Bauble. Daryl could Force of Will this or Force of Negation it. He actually has both in his hand. Is he willing to Force of Negation a Mishra's Bauble? It doesn't feel good.
Exiling it is such a big deal here that he may end up feeling priced into this.
Right, that's a difference with Force of Will and Force of Negation. Negation exiles, and that's what he'll do, pitching Jace the Mind Sculptor. Right, so the way Salvagers works is it works with these baubles in the meantime to set up a value engine with something like Mishra's Bauble. You can bring it back from the graveyard, continue to draw cards. Mystic Forge, also a card in the deck. It's much like Experimental Frenzy, but just for artifacts. And that's going to be the play, the card from M20.
That's a card advantage engine. That is exactly what this deck is trying to get online.
Yeah, Daryl has Force of Will in hand. He's going to start by brainstorming.
Finding this blue source was so huge for the 4-color control deck because it turns on all of the cantrips that enable everything else to keep going.
And I like that Daryl's able to keep pace here, though he is paying a pretty big price. He continues to have to pitch extra cards, and he's going to run out of cards this way.
Right, having to get rid of one of his card advantage engines in Jace the Mind Sculptor is pretty painful.
Yeah, it looks like another blue card. Leovold is in his hand. He would like to not have to pitch that. But actually, in this matchup, Leovold doesn't draw very many cards.
So the big thing that Auriok Salvagers can do is if you have some sort of spell bomb that you can pair with the copy of Lion's Eye Diamond, or any of the baubles. He can't use those more than once per turn when there's a Leovold in play, but other than that, you're right, it's just not doing very much. Mystic Forge casts them off the top. A lot of things get cards out of your sideboard, like Karn the Great Creator.
That's what Daryl does. Pitches Leovold, cracks the fetch land, is up to 3 mana, all of his colors set up. Looks like we have another Mystic Forge in Kenton's hands. She's going to kind of keep jamming them and hoping one of them sticks around. And what do we have from Daryl? It's Wrenn and 6. Brings back his fetch land. It's not easy for Daryl's deck actually to get rid of Auriok Salvager. He has Abrupt Decay as his removal spell. Has some Fatal Pushes, but you can't really decay a 4-drop.
Yeah, it's specifically being a 4 toughness thing is also just something where you would need multiple Kolaghan's commands, like Leovold can't check it in combat. There are all sorts of things that is a barely awkward card.
Wrenn 6 takes an attack. Do we get another Mystic Forge? Looks like we do.
Not jellying a Mystic Forge on the battlefield.
Let's look at the top card. Taps to pay a life to exile away his top card. That was a land. Can't play those. He can play them if they are artifacts or colorless non-land cards. And looks like he is stuck there. We pass back to Daryl.
Hey, 4 mana pay a life loot. Big game.
Jace the Mind Sculptor. From Daryl, he can cast it.
And that is the ability to unsummon the Auriok Salvagers, which if Daryl had something like a Force of Will, he could then counter it on the way back down. Or if he's able to wasteland this copy of City of Traders and then return it to hand.
Right, so he has Jace here. Jace is going to unsummon it, and then next turn unsummon again plus wasteland.
Correct.
That's what he'll do, going back to Kenton. The Salvagers are in his hand. Now, if he finds a Lion's Eye Diamond in here, it's not going to matter.
Game will basically be over on the spot.
He has a lot of looks. A tap of Mystic Forge. Doesn't like what he sees so far. That was another Salvagers. That's no good. His top card and artifact this time. He plays 25 artifacts in the deck. So it hits about half the time. And he'll cast Chalice of the Voids. Chalice on 1. Does that really do anything here?
The big thing that it does is it just cuts off a lot of the cards that Daryl can play in the vein of cantrips. Okay. It also hurts Thoughtseize, and a lot of it here is, in his mind, it's mostly about card advantage.
And City of Traders from Kenton makes Karn the Great Creator.
That's not a bad one.
I was interested because I was thinking to myself, if he's recast Salvagers, I don't think I wanted to make that play.
I agree.
But Karn, we might be talking. -2 from Karn, going to find a card out of his wish board. What is the card? It is, well, Lion's Eye Diamond.
Okay.
The question here is, will he be able to cast it next turn? Remember that Wasteland is up for Daryl.
So the interesting thing here is if City of Traders goes away and Kenton can just find a land, he can lattice lock Daryl with Lion's Eye Diamond. So you just minus the Karn, and with the ability on the stack, you retain priority, sacrifice Lion's Eye Diamond for whatever color you want. Doesn't matter. And
it's not in your hand yet, right?
Correct. And then you get the lattice to your hand, cast the lattice, call it the Aristocrats, etc.
Daryl gonna have to brainstorm with Jace. Hopefully he can find Force of Will plus blue card and put an end to that sort of thing. And once Michelson's Lattice Karn is in play, there's no game left for Daryl.
Correct. He just can't play spells anymore at all outside of reactive things like Force of Will.
Mike's Lattice costs 6 mana. A copy of it is in Kenton's sideboard.
Biggest thing for him at this point would likely be a copy of Kolaghan's Command.
Sure to blow up an artifact. It's going to be Thoughtseize from Daryl. That gets countered, but he Chalice checked. Fair enough.
Oh, this is heads up. This is nice. So, Red Insects rolling down, shooting Karn the Great Creator means that if Kenton chooses to roll down this Karn next turn, then it's just going to die and Daryl can't get Lattice locked. This is a nice play.
Now, with Karn still around, are you worried at all about Mystic Forge entering the combat zone here?
So it looks like we see Daryl with a Plague Engineer in his hand, which actually checks a lot of the bigger attackers.
Okay. Yeah, there is Plague Engineer.
You also don't want Jace to be able to unsummon it.
Right. So Kenton, down to 2 mana after the Wasteland. Jason play Karn at 2. Can he recover? The point you made about the Lattice is pretty good here. City of Traders, the top card. Kenton would have loved to see that one turn. If he had that this turn, he would have won. He was 1 card short on the top of the deck for City of Traders. Now he checks out his wish board.
This is a really tough spot for him right now. Daryl named Monk on the Plague Engineer, which turns off the backup plan that this Bomberman deck tends to lean into, which is just casting Monastery Mentor with a bunch of 0-drop artifacts in order to create a battlefield from nothing.
So Karn -2 to find a Walking Ballista ends up being the play that Kenton wants here. Makes Ballista on 1. That doesn't feel like it does much here. Just a pass from Kenton. I was a bit surprised, given this hand, to see him exile City of Traders.
Yeah, so that's the kind of card that lets you just cast Auriok Salvagers if you have a way to protect Karn somehow.
It felt like the card, exactly the card he wanted here.
Right, right.
Does not have too many turns left. Jace goes brainstorming again.
It's possible the top card of his deck is another Soul Land. And then if this Walking Ballista doesn't die, it's a way for Kenton to win with infinite mana next turn with his Auriok Salvagers.
Right, Salvagers, Ballista, that would work.
Correct. So it may just be that he's trying to set that up and just make it to where he has the combo online if he can just rip to it this way. Sure. And he does kind of get 2 looks at it since he can activate Forge on his upkeep.
Two cards on top for Daryl. Buys back a fetch land. Cracks the fetch land.
Sometimes you just really don't want the cards you found.
Right, 1 and 6. You get a fetch land plus Jace. You get Brainstorm plus fetch land every turn. Not too bad.
What we call a combination. Love 5 different fetch lands or 5 different dual lands on the battlefield.
Just missing one, right? Needs the
Taiga.
The Taiga, and then we're good. Yeah. I don't think he plays.
Unlikely to see Taiga.
Does not have one. Baleful Strix from Daryl.
That's a spell that gets to resolve.
Ups the clock. And 3 more. He's going to add a second Plague Engineer. This could name Construct. That would take care of Walking Ballista.
And now Kenton is away if he wants to force this carrier to actually name Construct. Because if you activate the Walking Ballista with a spell in the stack, then that gives Ayers the chance to change his answer to something else if he wanted to.
Right, I don't know if there's anything else hugely impactful for him to name. Yeah, he names Construct. Then attacks in.
The big difference is it makes it so Monastery Mentor can't even come into play and gives redundancy if Daryl just gets to name Monk again.
Right. So Kenton, upkeep, looks at the top card with the Mystic Forge. Monastery Mentor in his hand, it's not going to do much. Doesn't like the top card, so pays a life to Mystic Forge. Top card was Chalice of the Void, that's no good. He draws, he needs a land that makes 2 mana. Checks out the top card. Casts another Lion's Eye Diamond. It's possible he can start from nothing here, depending on what the top of his deck is. See a Bauble in hand. Gonna cast that. And is 2 Monastery Mentors and an Auriok Salvagers.
And there's still a chance for him here if he can just find a copy of Salvagers or a way to cast Salvagers from his hand. So a 2-mana land, chain some Lotus Petals. There are ways that it can happen from here since he can just cast a colossal Walking Ballista.
Right, or he could even, if he just say off the top of his deck, finds more Lion's Eye Diamonds and a Karn, he could just Karn Lattice in 1 turn.
That's not going to be enough, though, because there are creatures that can attack it.
Right. Okay, so that isn't enough. He'd have to get Ensnaring Bridge and then find... Yeah, that's too much. He can't get both. It really would have to be Walking Ballista.
Bright side, Urza's Bauble is going to get to look at a random card in Darrow's hand.
So is there a way, then, I guess, for him to both get Salvagers in play? Is there a way for him to get Salvagers in play and get enough mana to cast it with one draw step?
If he can find a soul land.
Okay.
With these 2 planes, or if he finds a regular land and a Lotus Petal off of Mystic Forge.
Okay.
Then that's a way for Auriok Salvagers to actually play here.
But one Force of Will from Daryl's side is going to be too much.
Correct. It's so gross that Jace can brainstorm with a Chalice on 1.
Yeah. He shouldn't be able to do that. It should be countered.
It's flavor fail.
Swing for 5. Minute 30 remaining. Clock is correct. 5 damage. Unlikely to go past the 5 turns. Kenton's deck doesn't have life gain or removal.
One way or another.
Okay, there we see a Fatal Push.
Oh.
Okay, so that actually covers Salvagers.
Not with Chalice on 1.
Right. Back to Kenton we go. Draws for turn. He did not crack Mystic Forge, so I presume he likes the card he drew. Here's Mishra's Bauble. 5 damage, Kenton at 9.
Still gets a couple looks. He gets 1 more turn after this, it looks like.
He has a Plains in hand.
If he finds the Lotus Petal, that's it.
So here's a bauble. Yeah, wants to try to build up maybe one land at a time as opposed to a soul land.
I do like taking the plains here because it is a sign of patience, right? You only have so many soul lands in your deck, only so many Lotus Petals. The odds of those are roughly the same, but if he knows he gets 2 more draws, 2 shots at 2 plains is fine.
Looks at a random card in Daryl's hand. It's Scalding Tarn. Another bauble. Get 2 more cards at the beginning of Daryl's next turn. Look at a different card in hand. Snapcaster Mage.
Oh, that casts Force of Negation. The hard way.
Yeah, does that matter?
That can counter a... No, because there are 2 Lion's Eye Diamonds. I was going to say it can counter a Lion's Eye Diamond on the way back down and exile it.
What it does do... See Master Mentor from Kenton, turn on 0. With a 7th land from Daryl, it flashes back Force of Will.
Correct, and there's that Scalding Tarn hanging out in Daryl's hand.
But maybe Daryl has other plans. Here is Snapcaster Mage. Can he deal 9? Maybe. We have 7. Ren and 6 makes 8. Turn 1 is Daryl's.
And this just may be a spot where Daryl wants to make the game over.
Or Unsummon Mentor. Swing and use Ren's minus. That's almost enough. Does he have a card that deals a 10th point of damage?
Another Ren and 6.
That would do it. The way he's moving, I think he might have that. Here's a swing. Kenton to 2. Ren and 6 minuses. Second Ren and 6 minuses. Daryl Ayers picks up the win in turns.
That was so close. It felt like that Team Amulet was just holding on by a thread that whole time.
Yeah, I really felt like we might, especially on those Mystic Forges, when Kenton managed to resolve one, it felt like we might see a game end there.
Yeah, absolutely. That card just